43 personnes qui ont dit
Tu me vois?
watching. Non. Tu start le Google Hangout, hein?
I said start broadcast. I have 0 viewers.
Il y a plein de monde qui sont là.
I have 0 viewers. Okay, so hi everybody. I'm sorry that we're pretty late to begin this Q&A session. This Q&A session is a follow-up to the video that we presented to you regarding English in Montreal, and it's a pretty, I guess, complicated or touchy subject. So that's why we felt it was important to have a follow-up Q&A on the subject and answer some of your questions. So for those of you who know us, then this is going to be easier. For those of you who don't, I'm going to give you a brief introduction about Abacus. Essentially, Abacus is a recruitment firm over here in Montreal. We connect some of the top IT professionals with some of the top IT companies over here in Montreal. We also work a little bit in Quebec City, but these are our 2 main cities, especially Montreal, with also some clients over in Quebec City. Our role when it comes to IT professionals is to make sure that we're finding those who have the right profile and then working with those people to make sure that you're given all the information, all the tools in order to properly prepare for your integration into the job market, the IT job market more specifically. We've received many questions. Before getting to that, I also want to invite you to join our Facebook, join our Google Plus, and follow us on Facebook, Google Plus, and Twitter. And yeah, we always come up with some interesting concepts, some interesting information for especially IT professionals who are in the process of immigrating. So to clarify, we don't do work permits. We don't help you find a work visa. Really what we do is we're finding the individuals who have applied for permanent residency and work with those people in order to make sure that they're properly prepared in order to work at the best level possible once they've arrived to the province. This is what we do. And so the people that we accept for our services, for our free services, must at least have a CSQ or an open work permit in some cases, but mostly must already have a CSQ. We've received quite a few questions on the subject. Some were actually great questions. We've also received many questions that were a little bit too specific. You know, we're not an immigration firm. We are a job placement firm. Immigration is not our specialty, but we don't know much about it. We know enough to help you today with some higher level questions that you had. Any question that's, you know, specific to a certain profile where I have this number of years of experience and I'm looking to immigrate, my wife does this, I have children. Those are more lawyer related questions. However, the immigration website has, the Immigration Quebec website has some really great tools that you can use. One of those tools is you can just go on their Immigration Quebec website and you can get a preliminary evaluation of your profile made. So basically what you do is you go on there, you type it, you answer a whole bunch of their questions, your age, your number of years of experience, your field, your diploma level, and so on and so forth. And they'll tell you whether you're a good candidate for immigration or not. This is a great tool for you to use because you can really put in your profile. And if it's not, it's not. If it is, it is. And if it is, then you'll know that maybe there's something you should explore further. So I invite every single one of you who are wondering about possibly immigrating to Quebec to start off by using that tool. And if it shows that you're a good candidate, then maybe taking those steps a little bit further. I'm going to send you the link right now in the group chat. I hope that you can see it. No? Hold on, I hear that you're not seeing it even though I'm putting it in the group chat. Just give me a second. I'm gonna keep talking, and hopefully we can figure out this group chat thing before the end of the session. And by the end of the session, I'm going to make sure I get you those links once again. But that's a very important link, and I'm going to make sure that you all get it. Okay, so I'm going to ask you all just to be a little patient because I'm going to activate. I'm having trouble with Google Hangouts. I'm going to activate a link that's going to allow us to better share some information. My QA thing is disabled, unfortunately, in Google Hangouts, and I have to find some way to activate it. So if anybody has any ideas, this will go much faster. Please give me a couple of minutes and I will get right back to the questions.
I need to do guide calendar. You need to click. I'm running it by Skype, which is going to show you.
Okay, I don't want to make you all wait too long, so we're going to forget this for now, and we're going to proceed with the questions, and we'll find a way to get you those links. So the first question that we received, so I also want to let you know that any question that has to do with work permits, we're not answering those because that again is not the point of this of the conversation today. The point is to let anybody who's interested in immigrating to Quebec know whether, if we just speak English, what's it going to look like for me? Okay, that's really the point of the conversation today. So any question that has to do with the type of technologies that are popular on the market, we had quite a few of those questions. You know, people asking me, well, I do Ruby or I do Java, and what's the outlook for someone like me on the market? We actually had a Q&A about this very subject a few weeks ago. So once again, once we figure out this whole link thing, I'm going to send you the link to that Q&A, and I'll invite you to go take a look because we did cover that subject extensively, and it's going to give you a pretty good idea about the technologies that are in demand over here in the market. So let's proceed without further ado to the questions. So the first question is it a big issue if I don't speak very good English in fields such as business analysis or project management and so on? So to begin this answer, let's just start off by saying, as a business analyst, as a project manager, one of the most important skills that you need is communication. So whether you're going to work as an English business analyst or French business analyst or business analyst in Portuguese, your communication level has to be strong. So if you're just able to have a conversation, understand what's being said and being able to be understood, but without great fluidity, your odds of getting a job as a business analyst are very, very low. And I wouldn't recommend immigration at that point, I would make sure that you get your level at least to an intermediate advanced stage. So we don't need extremely advanced communication, but it needs to be anywhere between upper intermediate and advanced. That's important. If we're talking about programmers, well, as a programmer, if I can be understood and understand, but I have a great technical skill set with really in-demand technologies, with great experience, then that's a profile that can also work as a programmer, because you don't have one-to-one communication is not such an important aspect. That's for that question. The next question is, how can I find companies willing to hire somebody without French? So what I understand from the question is, how can I find these companies that are hiring people in English? That's a very difficult thing to do. You have to understand that in Quebec, we're very, very, very strict on the French laws. Whenever you post a job, you have to post it in both English and French. If you don't post it in French, you post it just in English, you could get in trouble with the language police, as we like to call them. So oftentimes, even job postings that are just for English, you'll see them in French as well. And oftentimes, they're going to say strong English is needed, but we also French is also important. Or language is needed, English and French, and so on. So it's very difficult to find those opportunities, just because companies very rarely advertise that only English is enough, because that can probably get them in hot water, like as I said, with the language police. So how do we find them? That's a very good question. So you need a network. That's really the best way of doing it, is having a network, knowing people, speaking with people, learning about the companies that they work, asking about the work language over there, and finding out. So building a network is a very important thing. And actually building a network is not just important for that, but for your career in general, for growing your career, for advancing, getting tools, getting information. Having a network is a really important thing that you're going to have to focus on building if you want to advance in your career over here in Montreal and in Quebec. The other thing you can do is just prepare an English CV. Write that your English is whichever level it is, and don't mention French or mention basic French, and just send it out to the job opportunities. So that's a lot less efficient, but any job opportunity that's open to someone who is good with English and not so good with French, you're going to get responses from them. So it's a lot more at large and less efficient work, but it does get the job done. Next question. I think that I don't have problems to learn French, but I really would like to know if an immigrant is accepted easily by society without French. That's a great question. There's many levels to it. So we're looking about, if you're just wondering if you're going to get accepted, sure. I mean, if you're contributing economically, if you're working and you're contributing and so on, you're going to get accepted. But I don't think the goal is accepted. I think the goal is to strive. You want this new place to feel like a home, not just a place where people accept you. You want to feel like you're one of the people. And that's where French becomes important. So what I was trying to get across in our video is that with English, you can immigrate if you have a very strong technological profile. To recap, if you have at least 5 years experience in IT, if you have at least a university diploma in IT, and if you speak English, of course, I encourage you once again to go on the site and to test out your profile to see what the government site has to say about your chances. But again, if you have just those criteria, you're off to a very good start, and immigration is possible for you. And getting a job in your field is also possible for you. That being said, if you're going to want to really integrate into society, at some point you're going to have to learn French. So any chance you get as you're working, you're over here, you're working in English. A mistake that many people do is they think, well, I'm working in English, so I'm fine. I get by. I have my 2, 3, 4, 5 friends here and that also speak English. I'm fine. But you're never going to truly be integrated. You're never going to have the full experience. And also your career is probably going to block at some point. There are many opportunities, of course, where you can go to the very top of a company almost if you just speak English. I said very many, but actually meant there are opportunities, but they're very limited. And if you really want to give your long-term career the best chance possible, you need to learn French. Okay, so what I need you to take away from this question, which is actually a very good question, is with English, and a good technical profile and a good background, education, etc., you can immigrate and you can work. But you're always going to be limited in how much you've integrated, and you're going to have more limitations in how far you can go. Okay. Usually, how long does it take for a new resident to find a job knowing just English? So I can't really answer that question because it really depends on your profile. Again, if you go back to your other video to see which technologies are really popular in the market over here, what companies are looking for. If you have that profile that companies need and you only speak English, you could get a job if you have your permanent residency. Okay, we're not talking about work permits. If you have a permanent residency, we know many people who have received a job a month before arriving, while they were still in their country. It could be that. It could be within the first month of your arrival. It could take 3, 4, 5, 6 months. It depends, but generally, if you don't have a good technical profile, if you don't have the type of technologies that are needed by the market over here, or if there's anything else, maybe you're never going to find a job. So it's important for you to really, truly understand what's needed on the market, look at your profile and weigh your communication, your capacities, your experience, and wonder, well, how well do I fit really? That's a really important question, because like I said, it can vary from I got my job before I arrived to I haven't found a job yet. So that's to answer that. What are the percentages of job offers in French and English? I can't really give you a percentage because this is obviously not a statistic that is really known or popular, because again, companies will be very afraid to say, yeah, our environment is just Anglophone and we hire just English people. Companies just won't do that because they're going to get in trouble once again by the language police, or they're afraid that they're going to get in trouble by the language police. So those statistics are unfortunately not available. So we're going to go on our experience to answer this question. And basically, the big bulk of the opportunities require French. Okay. So if you're bilingual speaking, that you speak English and French, you're that person who has the most chances. If you speak only French, then you do have quite a few opportunities. And if you speak only English, you have less opportunities than if you speak only French. And plus, you're just limited to Montreal. If you speak only English and you want to come to the province of Quebec, you can only come to Montreal. Forget Quebec City, forget many of the other cities. Montreal is pretty much your only chance. Yeah, it's how can I say it? Yeah, I think I forgot where I was at. What was I saying, Joe?
That if you don't speak English,
yeah,
you need to be in Montreal, not going to Quebec City, other city like that.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to be limited. So, yeah, that's it for that topic. We have someone that said, last October, I spent 3 weeks in Montreal and I spoke more English than French. My impression was that you could live in here without or just with a little French. Is that right, especially in IT? I kind of answered that question earlier, knowing that yes, I mean, you can get by, you can be accepted, and you can make a life for yourself without a problem, but you're not going to strive, and you're not going to get the full experience, and you're going to be limited in the number of positions. But you can get it all started, that's for sure. I have a question. I'm married and my husband works in IT as well, but he doesn't know any language at all. He doesn't know English and he doesn't know French. I started to study French, but he doesn't have time to study with me. Can we apply for a resident visa if he doesn't know any language skills? So this is an immigration-related question, and I'm not gonna answer the immigration side of it because it's a very specific case. It will depend on so many things about your profile, number of years of experience, et cetera, et cetera. But the reason I kept this question was, if you don't speak English or French, why would you want to immigrate? You're not going to work. That's as simple as that. If you don't speak English and you don't speak French, you're not going to work. You're not going to work in IT anyways. I don't want to speculate about the types of jobs that you can get, but life is going to be very difficult for you. It's going to be difficult to get a job, and it's going to be difficult to even get by in society. So if you don't speak either English or French, of course, everybody has their reasons to immigrate, so I'm very respectful of that. But if just talking on a pure work standpoint, if you don't speak English or French, I would rethink the immigration project altogether, because working in IT anyways is not going to be possible in anywhere in Quebec. So I have 6 years with IT on Java, and I would like to know, can I immigrate with only my English? So again, that comes back to the whole topic of this video. Is Java is a popular language here, and you have over 5 years. So I kept this one immigration-related question because it's a perfect example of the type of profile that should really consider immigration. Is you have more than 5 years experience in IT with a technology that's in demand over here, Java. And I'm assuming that you have a university diploma. If you have these 3 things, yeah, I mean, your chances of immigrating are pretty good, you know? I just want to point out that if any new questions come out following this Q&A, or if you have any new questions, just simply feel free to post them on the event main page that's currently being monitored. So any questions that are relevant, we're going to answer them as well live. So you have any questions right now that you're thinking of and you'd like to get an answer that's related to the topic, we're going to select the questions that are related to the topic and we'll answer them live. So feel free to go ahead and write your questions on the main page. Okay. So one question is it possible to go work only in English and learn French while living in Quebec? Yeah, of course. I mean, you have to put the effort, but that's the ideal situation. The ideal situation is learning French before you arrive. But if your English is intermediate and you know no French and you have, let's say, a year before you arrive, in those cases, it's probably good to learn some basic French, but to maybe even improve your English. That's probably what's even more recommended, because it's going to increase your chances of getting the job. And through the job, that's your best way of starting to integrate into society. Without a job, I don't know, personally, in my opinion, it's not scientific, but I don't know how you can really integrate into society if it's not through work, first and foremost. But that's my opinion. So to answer the question, yes, you can work in English and learn French while you're here. That's ideal. Of course, it takes a commitment because working is a lot of time. So when you take those French courses, you have to make an effort to go out to speak to people and get entrenched. But many people do it, and it's a great strategy. I find it's something great to do. You just have to be committed to it and put in the time. There's many, you can learn in universities, you can learn in certain specialized centers, you can get some private tutoring. There are many options. So yeah, it's a good strategy. So in IT, is there a minimum level of speaking French? I'll assume that the question was English, but let's say French or English. I'll answer this question. There is a minimum level. The minimum level is speaking either English or French, depends on your profession. If you're a programmer, a developer, then intermediate English or French is fine. I mean, that to me is a minimum level. Even maybe a little tiny bit less than intermediate, but in those cases, the number of jobs available to you are going to be much more limited. I always encourage intermediate speaking as the basic minimum level for either English or French if you're a developer, or any technical position. Any position that requires a high degree of interaction, such as business analysts, project managers, team leads, etc. In this case, you're going to want to get your English to at least upper intermediate and even probably advanced. So it just depends on your client-facing versus not client-facing position and how much interaction you actually have. We actually have a guide on our website, www.abacustalent.com. It's a free guide. It's the IT guide to the foreign trained professionals IT guide to the Montreal market. Essentially, in there we have a grid that shows you again your chances. I invite you to go on that grid. And take a look at your profile, and it'll give you a good idea of how good of a situation you are or not, and which things you must improve, including language, depending on your profession. Because we're having trouble with the links here, and I'm having trouble giving you those links, what we're going to do is we're going to send the links by email to everybody who has subscribed for this event. And we'll also add it to the information box of the recorded video over here. So you're going to have access to it. Moving on to the next question. If I submit my application for the CSQ, I like this question. I thought it was funny, but you know, I enjoyed it. If I submit my application for the CSQ with language points only attributed to English, couldn't it be that the application will be treated with slight disregard since I won't have any French? Let me just, hold on, where'd that go? Yeah, basically the question is, if I fill out my immigration application for the CSQ and put that I don't know any French, I'm just going on the English basis, on the basis of English, is it possible that the agent that's analyzing my profile is gonna say, well, he doesn't speak French, so we don't really want him here, and would just put the file aside? No, that's not a possibility. It's not immigration is not a subjective profile for the CSQ, especially since the 5th of August of this year, where the rules have changed. Whereas before, there was two types of applications. There was those who would have just enough points and they would be required to pass an interview with an agent. And there were those who had so many points that an interview was not necessary. Well, that interview aspect is gone now since the 5th of August of this year, 2015. And it's only about having a minimum level of points. They've lowered those number of points. I have them here. It's now 49 points. I don't remember what it was. I think it was like 56 or something of the sort. So the minimum level of points for somebody single is 49 and 57 number of points for a family. So they've been lowered the number of points and they've made that subjective one-on-one meeting not part of the process anymore. So it's really black and white. Either you have enough points or you don't. If you have enough points, you're put in queue to receive your CSQ. If you don't, you're not. There's no subjectivity to it. Of course, if you know French at the proper level, you get a whole bunch of points, and so your profile is even stronger. But as we said, the whole message we're trying to get across is if you only speak English, you have 5 years experience in IT, you have a university diploma in IT, in an IT-related field, then your chances of immigrating are pretty good, and you should strongly consider it. That being said, always keep in mind that French is going to be important sooner or later, so always make it an objective of yours to begin learning French or to keep learning French or to improve your French, whether it's before you arrive or after. Okay, next question. So we're done with the prepared questions that we've received before this event. I'm going to now go on to the live questions. So let me see. I speak English, no certificate. Actually, I work, I speak English without any sort of official written level. And I actually work with clients in the USA and Canada. I'm studying French, taking the TCFQ in October. Maybe I'll get a B1. I'm a QA engineer specialized in automation with Java and C#. I applied in your site for 2 positions, quality assurance engineer and senior software developer and test, but I've never received an answer. What can I do? How's the process, etc.? Great question. I mean, because off the top, when I see this potential profile, you know, a QA engineer specialized in automation, that's a profile that's really in demand over here. Plus you do it with Java and C#. That's a really good profile. the question is, do you have your CSQ? So when it comes to is your profile attractive for the market? That's one thing, but then can you work with abacus? That's another question. And really, you have to have your CSQ. So I don't have the information in your question, but if you have a CSQ, then theoretically we would have at least begun the process of meeting with you, and I'll go over that process. So the steps are, but before I say that, but if we didn't get in touch with you, it must be that you said that you didn't have your CSQ, or that when we looked at your CV, it probably it didn't have enough experience that we look for. Keep in mind, here's our process. The first step is obviously you apply on our website and you put your CV and you fill a form. We don't consider any profile that doesn't have at least a CSQ. So we take CSQ, we take permanent residents, citizens, and anybody on an open work visa. If you have a closed work visa and you've applied for your CSQ, that's something that we'll consider as well. But you need to have at least something going on. If you haven't begun any process, we don't consider the profile. Okay. If you do have one of those immigration status, and that we find that your CV really fills our criteria, and the minimum thing we're looking for is 3 years. Oftentimes we look for 5, but 3 years is our minimum criteria. And then we're looking for technologies that are in demand in the local market. And we're looking for a decent level of communication skill in either English or French. If you have all of that, generally you can expect to receive an email from us asking you to book a Skype interview with us. I'm assuming that you're a candidate who's still living abroad, in this case probably Brazil. So the next step would be a Skype meeting. During this Skype meeting, we extensively go over your profile. These meetings can last anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half. We really get to learn about you and your professional background, your professional profile. We'll go over your strengths. We'll let you know what makes you a strong professional for the market, and we'll go over your weaknesses. We'll let you know what you should really improve on. We'll let you know that here's where you're at now, here's where you could be, so here's what you must work on to get to that level. And those things can be as simple as, redoing a CV, and we help you with that, to touching up on certain technologies, maybe getting a certification, and a whole host of other things. It really depends. So that's the next step as part of the process. After this meeting, in any case, we've given you advice that we feel would be very important for you to know. We either retain you or we don't. If we've retained you for our services, everything is always free. At that point, we stay in touch, we check up on you, or you follow up with us to let us know how your federal immigration process is advancing. And as you're about to arrive to the province, so let's say once you received your permanent residency, when you're 4 weeks to 6 weeks to maybe even 8 weeks away from arriving here, we start connecting you with employers. So we have had people who have started to work and got a job before even arriving. But in most cases, you can expect to keep getting interviews after you arrive if it hasn't happened before. Many people end up getting a job on their own without us introducing them to the clients, their profile being so strong already and having brought all the necessary improvements. So that's generally the process. It's quite simple. We wish we could help everybody. Unfortunately, it's not possible for us. But if you do have the profile, then you can expect to have a partner really for your entire career, not just for your first job. We take your career as a high degree of responsibility. We know that you spend more time with your colleagues than you do with your family, and that's something that we take very seriously. So you can really expect to have a career partner, not just for your first job, but throughout. Next question. I received a question regarding what is an upper intermediate or advanced French or English level, considering some of the official grades such as B1, B2, and so on. I received some emails from Abacus requiring CSQ because of some opportunities that have applied. Oh wait, that's two different questions, sorry. What is an upper intermediate or advanced French or English level considering some of the official grades such as B1, B2, and so on? Honestly, I'm not super familiar with the B1 and B2 levels. I work more on, seeing how the communication goes. But what we're going to do is I'm going to look at the B1, B2 levels and all of those. We'll see which ones closely fit my terminology, which is upper intermediate, advanced, etc. And we're going to include that in our send list, and we'll give you that information. I received a question that's regarding the CSQ. People saying I received emails from Abacus saying that they require a CSQ for many of the opportunities. So as I said, we require a CSQ. And as I said, just because you have your CSQ, you really have to have a certain profile that fits what we look for. So we don't select everyone. We're very selective in who we work with. We're really looking for very, very strong professionals that not only are strong, but who have a great fit with the market over here. And then we work with you to make sure that, you have all the tools to be able to properly show that fit. Okay, but we really do select those individuals. So the person is, how can I request a CSQ? A CSQ is a Certificat de Sélection du Québec. It's basically the first step of immigrating to Quebec. For that, I invite you to go on the Immigration Quebec website to get more information about how to get your CSQ. So just in case there was confusion, the CSQ is not an Abacus thing. It's a government immigration thing. Okay, next question. Do you find it a better option to arrive to Montreal and study both English and French for a few months before trying to enter the market? Or is it okay to arrive and look for a job right away with less than upper intermediate knowledge on the languages? Good question. The first thing I would say is focus on, if you've arrived here, already, you're not overseas. If you're here and now the clock is ticking, because the longer you go without a job, the harder it becomes to get a job. Unfortunately, that's the way. The longer you go without working in your field, the less high the job you're going to get is probably going to be. So you kind of have a ticking clock once you arrive. And that's one of the reasons why we meet the people when they still have only their CSQ and they're still in their country, is because it allows you the time to do all the preparation you must do before you arrive. So once you arrive, you're work ready, as we say. And that's very important. But first of all, if you barely know English or French, I would recommend that, yes, you do a very strong effort to learn at least one. I wouldn't say both at the same time, because that's going to dilute your learning curve. You want to get as good as possible, as fast as possible, with at least one language. So yes, the question is, if I have less than upper intermediate. Again, if you have less than upper intermediate and you have a client-facing position, such as business analyst, project manager, etc., I would really say to learn your language, because it's going to be very tough to get a job in that field if you don't speak really well. If you're less than upper intermediate, but I mean you have communication, you can speak, be understood, and understand, and everything is relatively fluid. Yeah, sure, you make grammatical mistakes. Sure, you hesitate every now and then. And so, sure, you have a strong accent. But if we can get in a conversation that's relatively fluid and you have more of a technical position, such as developer or so on, then it's probably better that you work right away. You're probably going to work at a little less of a high level if your communication is not strong, but at least you'll begin, and you'll begin in your field. Whereas if you take the time to learn the language, then you become a little bit less employable if too much time goes on. So start working in your field, very important. Never work outside of your field, because once you leave the field, it becomes a whole new difficult ballgame to get back in your field. So work in your field, learn the language, improve the language, and then go to the next level. So I'm looking, and we're getting, again, many questions regarding what are the most popular technical skills and so on. So we had a Q&A specifically about this topic. There's a video that's available specifically on this topic that was pretty comprehensive, pretty detailed. That's going to give you a lot of that information. Again, to everybody who subscribed, along with the other immigration link that we said we're going to send. We're also going to send you the link to the other video that's going to allow you to have all the information you need in regards to technical skills. So that's the good news. I'm just reading more of the questions. Okay, so that's it for our questions for today, unless anybody has anything else. I really hope this was helpful. I would invite you to both, leave more questions. If you have more questions, we'll keep checking them to see if there are any relevant questions relevant to this topic, and we're going to keep answering them. Also, please send any comments. What we're doing is new. We want to make sure that we're answering the proper needs. So please leave your comments, whatever. We'll be totally receptive, and we look forward to answering any of the questions. So thank you very much for assisting. Have a great day, and we'll see you hopefully on our Facebook page, on our Twitter page, or on our Google Plus page. So take care, everybody. Bye-bye.